Hello and welcome back to SnowRunner, y'all. Except this video is not actually about SnowRunner. It's about expeditions. More specifically, it's about expeditions modding, and it has to do mainly with this conversation in my comments from my last expeditions mods video. And if you want to read those comments yourselves, you can actually just scroll back a little bit and pause the video. But without any further ado, I'm going to break down some of the things that were said because they're coming from very credible sources that are very high up in the modding community. And the comment we're going to start out with is one from Puppy Master, who is well known for the creation of the IX Heavy Wrecker and multiple other popular mods for SnowRunner. And he says, I know for an absolute fact that expeditions will have mod support seemingly at launch. The only uncertainty that I have is what the distribution system will be, whether it's going to be Mod.io, Steam Workshop, etc. But the interesting thing will be the type of things that we'll be able to do with mods on expeditions, full suspension swaps, which, if you're not aware of how big of a deal that is, let me put it to you this way. That is something that modders have been wanting to be able to do reliably for a very long time in this franchise, and to be able to do it in expeditions is definitely going to allow mod creators to give you so much wider of a variety in terms of just how vehicles can be built and all of the different purposes that they could be used for. I mean, think about, for example, if you could take a solid axle vehicle and go, you know what? I feel like using this for, say, pre-running or Baja or whatever. I'm going to swap out I'm going to take this solid axle suspension setup and turn it into like an independent front long travel suspension setup. There is so much potential there. And especially when you think about it from the standpoint of going from an independent front suspension back to a solid axle, I mean, that creates even more of a broader landscape as to what you can do in terms of just vehicle build freedom. Because after all, the more freedom you give people and mod creators to build the vehicles that they want to build, the further they're going to be able to take their own projects. And of course, the greater community is going to be able to just tailor their vehicles to be whatever they need them to be at the time. And of course, make no mistake, more customization options are always better. There is no downside to offering your modder base or your player base more options as to what they can do in terms of customizing their vehicles and creating the vehicles that they just genuinely want to have included within the game. And as there always will be, I'm sure that there's going to be naysayers that are going to say, well, some vehicles just should never be converted from this type to this type, or this vehicle should always be a solid axle and this vehicle should always be an independent suspension. But to be honest, if you don't think a vehicle should ever be converted from one type to another, then just don't convert your own. And if someone else wants to convert theirs, then let them be. It's not really all that hard to allow, honestly, just enthusiasts and people in general to build their vehicles the way they want to build them. And I'm sure that's going to set somebody off because, I'm sure someone's going to think that, no one should be allowed to do this, or no one should be allowed to do this when it comes to vehicle customization. Or you could just shut up and build your vehicles the way you want to build them and let others build vehicles the way they want to build theirs. But interchangeable suspension models are not the only thing to be excited about. I've actually seen in that same comment thread, some map creators have also expressed that they are excited to see what they'll be able to do in expeditions as well. And that's really important because I think map creators never necessarily get the amount of appreciation and love that vehicle creators sometimes do. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the vehicle creators either. Mod creation across the board is a lengthy process. It's an in-depth process. It's a process that a lot of these people invest a lot of time and effort into, and sometimes a lot of time and effort and money. Which is why it's good to be able to support these mod creators whenever you can, whether that's supporting them with, a little bit of a donation, or supporting them with some positive engagement on their mods online, or supporting them by leaving them a good review. Like, all of these things help these mod creators create more mods for the game. And I mean, if you really want to help support a mod creator, you can also commission them to build you something. So if you ever do want a vehicle put in the game, you can definitely reach out to some mod creators, and if one of them maybe can't do it, there's always more that you can reach out to. And now back to the task at hand. So as far as expeditions goes, I think there's a lot healthier of a modding landscape on the horizon than people may have realized. I also want to talk about mod hosting platforms, because after all of the time that SnowRunner has used mod.io, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I know that there are a lot of other people out there that are not the biggest fans of mod.io. I mean, it works, but it doesn't always work super well, if that makes sense. It's been through a couple of updates as well that have altered the user interface slightly, and apparently those have also not been all that great. And while they haven't announced whether or not mod.io will remain the mod hosting platform for expeditions as it was for SnowRunner, I'm hoping that there's like a little tiny bit of a chance somewhere out in the expanse of the universe that we might actually get mods hosted on Steam Workshop again. Because y'all, oh my god, if we could get mods hosted on Steam Workshop again for a runner's game, that would be the first time that that's ever happened in this series, pretty much since MudRunner. And back in the days of MudRunner, the Steam Workshop was used constantly. I mean, it's still used today to host MudRunner mods. I mean, for the original MudRunner. And there are so many aspects about the Steam Workshop that just work really, really well for hosting mods for a game like this. And I mean, it works really, really well for, say, for example, American Truck Simulator. It works really well for, honestly, it works really well for a bunch of different games that I am not going to take the time to list by name. But the point is, if you've used the Steam Workshop before, you'll know that it's reliable, it's very user-friendly, and it also just does a good job of being friendly to the player overall. It's like, oh, you've bought this game on Steam. Would you like some mods? And the only thing that I could see changing that is, let's say, for example, if there's kind of an issue where they can't use the Steam Workshop because they also want mods to be available on consoles, because I doubt that they would try to use multiple different mod hosting platforms. And I think a lot of the reason why they used mod.io for SnowRunner is because they wanted a lot of these mods to be universally available. Now, with universally available mods, you need a platform that's going to work across pretty much all of the systems that the mods are hosted on, which means Steam Workshop wouldn't necessarily work for that. And of course, with that being said, I hope that there's a chance that we could still see Steam Workshop being used for the PC version, but I also don't want to see the console community lose access to modding, because modding on consoles has done so much for this series. And I mean, literally, you could replicate the scenario that I'm in right now in SnowRunner. You could replicate that on just about any console, which is not something that we were able to say back in the days of, say, for example, MudRunner, or even earlier in the days of Spin Tires. I mean, back then, you would get pretty much laughed at for even insinuating that mods could be on console. And now here, you could literally replicate this exact scenario, taking a Bronco Raptor with a solid axle swap out to the middle of the desert to go rock crawling. And I want to keep the console community engaged in that. I want the console community to retain that level of access. But of course, you can let me know any and all of your thoughts on all of the stuff we discussed in that comment section down below. And if you're new around here and you would like to see more videos on any of these topics, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and of course, turn those notifications on. And if you would like to keep up with anything outside of the channel, you can check the description box down below because I do have an Instagram as well as an account over on Twitter/X that you can follow to see some more personal updates or day-to-day updates or little updates here and there on things that I'm working on. And that is going to do it for this video, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all later.